You only get a chance to live on this earth one time. You want to take advantage of that, and don't be gloomy about everything, but find something to be happy about. There's lots of things in all the musicals. There's always the philosophy that comes singing through, like, happy talk, keep talking happy talk about things you like to do. So find that, and don't listen to all of the doomsayers that are all around us right now telling you that the sky is falling, because it's not.
Welcome, friends and fans, to another episode of GalaxyCon Live, where we are bringing the convention experience directly to you. And today, we are going back to the Great Valley by way of the Dragon's Lair, through Ellis Island and the Promise of America, and so much more with today's guest. He is a director, animator, production designer, video game designer, and animation instructor whose career includes a multitude of animation classics, including, but absolutely not limited to, The Secret of NIMH, An American Tale, The Land Before Time, All Dogs Go to Heaven, Anastasia, Titan AE, and the games that ate 1 million quarters in the arcades of the 80s, Dragon's Lair and Space Ace. Please welcome Mr. Don Bluth.
Hey, well, thank you. That was a grand introduction. And it's certainly glad to be here in my own little office. And there's a great advantage in being able to just get out of bed, come in, sit down and share and talk to the world. It's really kind of nice. Thanks, Eddie.
Oh, Don, thank you so much for joining us today, sir. As I said, this is an absolute honor. Thank you for joining us here today. So glad you could join us on what we call the GalaxyCon virtual stage. As always, when we say this to all of our guests, we're looking forward to the day when the world hopefully gets a little bit back to normal. And I think we see the light at the end of the tunnel as a society. And we look forward to the day when, if you wish to join us on our physical stages, we would love to reunite you with your fans.
Very good. I love that. It sounds really great.
Absolutely, absolutely. So our team is going through the chat room right now, the questions, and whenever I have a solo guest, I just always ask this about their chosen craft. What got you interested in art and animation? How did this passion begin for you?
Wow, that's the one question that I've been asked so many times and I don't have an answer for.
That's fair.
Now, as much as I can put my finger on it, is that it started very, very young, and it started when I saw the movie Snow White. Because I'd seen a lot of movies. My parents used to take me to them all the time. I was in El Paso, Texas at the time. I was maybe 4 years old. And so I saw that movie, and there was something about it was different. It was the colors, it was the drama. It was the old queen making herself a witch. All that stuff was very impressive. And from that moment on, I said, who made that? I don't know why I said it. Who made that? What is that? And as I got to know more and more about it, I heard the word Walt Disney. And so I began to, search and search and search, no computers, but just search everywhere, ask questions. And I thought, he lives in California? I went in Texas. That's too far away. So I kept saying to my parents all the time, can't we move? Can't we move? We'd be closer to my dream. So anyway, eventually, as it worked out, those words were prophetic. We did move. I was about 8 years old. We moved to a farm. And in Payson, Utah. Yeah. Was not there in Texas, but not there in California where Walt was. So the dream went on and on and on, to make a long story short. On and on and on. And finally, at some point I went to California, and I had an aunt who said, I know where the Disney studio is, and I know a person who knows a person who knows another person who works there. So we can maybe have a tour. And it was heaven. We didn't make it, by the way. She got lost. So we didn't even make it. But it was a great moment. It was a great moment when I finally got there. And later on, I can tell you how I actually met Walt. So
really,
it was amazing. But see, it started really young.
Yeah.
And that's what I worry about today, is because I think most people need to have a dream or something. Inside of each one of us is a song, if I'm going to put it that way, a song that needs to be sung. And some people never get to sing it. And so it's just, that's the tragic part. And if they get waylaid by a lot of, words that they see on TV or see on the computer, then, it makes it harder for them. But dream a dream is really worthwhile.
I would absolutely agree with that. At what point do you consider your animation career actually beginning? When you really felt yourself, wow, I'm really doing this now?
Well, I used to go to Disney Studio during the summers, and I took a portfolio out there to show them, what I could do as an artist in drawing. And they said, well, come to work in the summers and then go back to school. So I did that for about 3 summers. And then after I got out of school, I said, well, I'm not going to go out there to Disney's. I went to a place called Filmation and made TV cartoons for a couple of years. And finally, I realized that isn't what I wanted to do. And I went back to Disney's during the time they were making Robin Hood. And they gave me a test. This is funny. They said, okay, we're going to give you an animation test. I said, okay. So they put me in a room with a desk, with paper, with pencils, with all the stuff that you use, to be an animator, and said, we'll come back in 2 weeks and see what you've done. And I said, that's a hell of a training program. So, yeah, it's like Rumpelstiltskin, here's some gold. So anyway, I did the best I could. And at the end of it, they said, okay, we're going to give you animation. You get to animate.
Yeah.
So, that was good.
There you go. And for whatever it's worth about your Filmation years, your hands were on Groovy Ghoulies, which was a show I enjoyed when I was very young, and I know it may not have been up to your standards, but for whatever it's worth from me, I'm a great Groovy Ghoulies fan. Thank you for your contributions to that. But more importantly, though, thank you for your contributions to Robin Hood, which is one of my all-time favorite of the Disney films. Yeah, Robin Hood was fun, because I was stretching my animation muscles at that point, finding out what I could and couldn't do. It was hard, though, and for all you animators out there who want to become animators, just take heart in the fact that it was about 3 years and a lot of headaches before I finally figured it out. That was going to be one of my questions. What's the one skill that everyone who aspires to be an animator really should possess? Well, you have to have the ability to draw. That helps. I have known a lot of animators that really didn't draw very well. They scribbled, and somebody else, turned it into the model sheet character. But I always think of drawing as a language, and the better you speak the language, the more you can talk about what you want to say. Yeah. So if you can't speak the language, and I was in Argentina for about 2.5 years, and while I was there in Argentina, I couldn't speak Spanish very well, and so what I wanted to say was really hard. So I brought that lesson that I learned over into animation. It's the same thing. If you can draw well, you don't have to worry about the drawing. Yeah. You can worry about what is your character doing? What's the emotion on your character? How does it fit around in the other scenes that are in the picture? Yeah. Of course, all of that has kind of changed right now. And a lot of the young generation think that it's all about drawing, and it's not. It's about acting. Yeah, very much so, very much so. I'm not going to ask what your favorite of all the films that you've had the direct hand into, but I will ask this. Is there a sequence from any of your body of work that you look back on with pride? Something you're just like, wow, this was just a really perfect moment. The team was on point. The voice acting was on point. Is there something from your catalog that you look back on like that? Wow, that's hard too, because it's sort of like singling out your favorite child. I know. It's pretty hard. I had a lot of fun, though, doing some scenes. In The Secret of NIMH, I think it was the fight between Jenner and Justin. I think that was a lot of fun. And I didn't know how to sword fight at all, so I went and got a lot of movies that I knew had sword fighting in and clipped a thing together that looked like what our script would use. Sure. So, I used that. And so it was about the content. How do you sword fight, and how does that work? I didn't know how to do that, so how could it? Even though I could draw somebody with a sword in their hand, I couldn't move them. Yeah. Unless I knew what that was about. If I had been a sword fighter and had taken lessons and all of that kind of thing, wow, that would have been a different scene. Well, I was a fencing competitor for several years, and when I revisited the film recently, it was on. So whatever sources you used, it flowed magnificently. It's a great scene. It's an absolute great scene. So, the thing I love about animation more than anything is it's pure color. And color is like music in an orchestra, because you can orchestrate the color so that it tells the audience what to feel. See, and all of those little things that you do with the music. We had Jerry Goldsmith is the one who did the music and the score for Secret of NIMH, and he did it when there was a lot of just pencil tests in there, so he couldn't tell exactly what was going on. When he saw the final movie, he said, let me go back and rescore. And I said, no.
No. We've spent the money. So he didn't go back to me. He says, but now I see what you're doing. And he says, and I noticed something else. He says, you guys animate to a rhythm. And he says, and that's the key for us. Because if you have a rhythm in that music, in the scene you're doing, in the action, and even in the dialogue and the acting and the way the scenes are put together, he says, a guy who's going to score your picture has an easy assignment.
I absolutely concur. And yes, rhythm and tempo. And you made a point of color. I think color is a very underappreciated facet to the untrained eye of animation, and especially again in Secret of NIMH when they're the scene where they're sabotaging the plow, right, and the reds increasing and then with matching everyone's franticness and the fear. Right. Yeah, that's a magnificent.
And colors have a psychological impact on an audience. So if you can do that correctly, and some don't. If you do it correctly, what happens is you focus the audience on what they should feel. And so it's as important as the animation and the acting and all of that.
Yes, absolutely. Well, again, NIMH is a favorite of mine. If I had to pick some favorites from your entire catalog, I would think, for me, the Great Owl sequence in NIMH, I think is one of the finest, one of my favorite scenes of all time. Just in terms of the gloom, the wind, the cobwebs, the voice acting. Carradine was so perfect for that. You made the owl, you and your team made the owl look like a magnificent monster, when in fact, owls are kind of goofy looking birds, but you made it a force of nature, and that scene impacted me tremendously.
Yeah, thank you. The owl's a symbol. And when we recorded John Carradine to do the voice, I went in there knowing nothing, but we went into a room, I think it was at MGM, went into a room that was as relic as the scene itself. You know, the carpet was tattered. The walls hadn't been painted in years. It was just, not what you call a modern recording studio.
Yeah.
When he arrived and came in, he immediately began talking. He said, "Okay, I'm ready." And then you got his hands. I looked at his hands and they were arthritic and swollen and curled, sort of like that.
Yeah.
That needs to be the owl.
Yeah.
So we went back and changed the owl so that he had this very interesting,
Yeah.
He could have killed that little mouse and just, and there were mouse bones all over underneath him. He had eaten before. So the owl isn't what he seems. The owl represents to me that spiritual voice that sometimes talks to us, that tells us things. He represents like that, a deity or God or something, but he's not really an owl, just a symbol. And he's the same character as Nicodemus.
Yeah, I would definitely do that. Definitely agree with that. Again, it's wonderful about Carradine. If I had to pick some other personal favorites of myself too, all of Dirk Daring's death expressions from Dragon's Lair, I think, are wonderful. And I saw plenty of them as I kept plunking in quarters of that machine. I love that because they're humorous, they're funny, but they never fell into like a Looney Tunes, Ooga, Tex Avery sort of thing. There's a naturalness to them. It's like, yeah, okay, he's getting electrocuted and his eyes aren't bugging out or he's falling in.
Well, and for most of us, when we look at death, you go, you get that fear feeling and everything. So I think what you have to do, and it comes from the humor of Looney Tunes and Roadrunner and all of that. I think it has to do with making the little death marks funny, because he's going to resurrect. He's going to come back again and try again. Yes. So one of it, you can take it very seriously. It's very tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
But they tried to make, and I had nothing to do with this, but they tried to make a sequel to that, and they left out all the death nodes, which told me why there was no entertainment in it. Why would anyone watch it? It was too mechanical. Although it was in 3D, it was just mechanical. And I said, there's no entertainment. Why do you watch something when you can't be entertained?
Yeah, and that's what it was. I think I knew guys who played video games, just play video games, and I knew other guys, and myself included, who were playing it because we wanted to get to the end. We wanted to see what happens at the end of Dragon's Lair and Space Ace, and it took a lot of quarters, but I did get there eventually.
Well, that's good. That's good. It's nice to be a success.
Absolutely. And my other personal favorite for your body work, it's just a short thing, but In Anastasia, Sophie Smirnov, whose character design was relevant to my personal interests and has since become a symbol of body positivity among people since then. So,
Sophie.
yes.
That wasn't anything like the voice. The voice is, I'm trying to remember her name right now.
It's Bernadette Peters.
Bernadette Peters, right. Bernadette Peters, is just such a gorgeous, gorgeous woman. And when she saw the character that we had designed for her, she says, "Oh my, no, no, no." We said, "No," but she makes up for it in a great personality, because that's what seems to be important to me anyway, is what a person's behavior is, and not what they look like, not what they, all of that. No, what are you like as a character, as a personality? And Sophie's wonderful. She's the one that makes it happen.
Yeah.
So she's a great character.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And real quick, and we'll go to our audience questions. I've never heard you comment on this, and if you have, I apologize. Talk a little bit about some of the work you did on Xanadu, the animation sequences. Is that correct?
Xanadu, yeah. Well, Xanadu was fairly easy to animate. It wasn't a big problem, really.
Yeah.
And I did the whole thing myself because everybody else was working on Secret of NIMH.
Sure.
I just animated everything, and I thought, well, this really doesn't matter, so just do it. Well, when I sat in the Cinerama Dome in California, and I was watching the premiere of the picture, I suddenly realized that the audience was full of college kids that age, looking around. And I said, you know what? They're going to laugh. As soon as he turns into a cartoon and starts this, I'm going to be embarrassed out of my mind. Because I always thought it was, something wonderful. So anyway, I waited and waited. And as the moment approached, when I knew it was going to be on screen, the moment approached, and suddenly there it was. There was silence for a moment. And then there was cheering and applauding. And I went, oh, good. So I wasn't totally wrong. And that encouraged me more than anything to just continue with the career, because I was no longer at Disney's. Disney's is this great, womb where you can protect it from everything, but and they just pay you the salary and you need to just do what you're told.
Yeah.
But no, I was out there on my own now, and you have to do yourself.
You were. Well, on behalf of myself and our audience here today, and everyone else who's been touched by your work, we're still applauding and cheering, Don. You have given us a tremendous amount of wonderful entertainment. You have made us laugh. You've made us cry, and you have made us smile in so many ways, in so many forms, for so many ages. Thank you for everything you've done. Thank you for your talents. Thank you for professionalism, and thank you for this amazing body of work.
My word. Okay, well, Mark said thanks, Patty. Thank you.
No problem. No problem. All right, let's switch to our audience questions now, because I bet we got a bunch going on. Okay, here's one from Radio Man 970, and they want to know: is there another story like NIMH that you've always wanted to do but haven't?
Yes, there is, and I don't know how to make it happen. But I would love to do the sequel to NIMH. Someone went out there and did one, but it wasn't right. It wasn't the right one. And so, but one of the studios in town has the rights right now, and I should just go running over and say, look, let me do it. Here's a treatment of what I think it should do.
Yeah.
I'd love to do that again, because I know those characters very well.
Yeah, indeed. All right, fingers crossed on that. Let's get those hashtags going. NIMH sequel by Don Bluth. Thank you, Radio Man. Great question to start us off with. And what do we have next? Here's one from Steven. What was the most challenging aspect in the creation of Anastasia?
Ha! Well, the most challenging of all, it wasn't the story, really. It wasn't that, although that was a bit of a challenge, because we had to make up some of the things that weren't historical, like Rasputin and what he was and all that.
Yeah.
But I think the fact was that was a time in the animation history when all of the animators that were experienced were either at Disney's or DreamWorks. And there was a wage war going on. So we said, how are we going to animate this picture? We went to the Philippines and we hired artists that had never animated. So we said, okay, this has got to be good. So we shot the entire picture live action. And we gave each animators, we gave them little sections of their scene saying, if you can top this, go ahead and do it, but it better look like it's real. So here's a stack of photostats that tell you how that person acted Anastasia. So use them if you will, but we're going to come back and revisit that with you and find out, because the whole picture has to fit together as a whole. And these guys were amazing. We had one guy named George, and George could draw something with both hands at the same time. And I said, I don't know how he's doing that. Can he animate?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, very talented pool of talent there. And we went and got whoever we could, got them green cards and brought them in because there was no one to hire off the street.
Wow. That must have been a good time to be an animator, certainly. Because you don't get days like that in animation very often.
No, those days are gone.
Yeah, indeed. So, well, Stephen, thank you. Great question. What do we have next? Here's one from Nick. Were you honored with a Winsor McCay Award? And what was it like receiving this?
Well, you know what? It's always an honor. I mean, even when someone like Patty loads you with all kinds of compliments, I mean, that's really, really good. It's always an honor. I mean, and you're thrilled at that. Someone congratulates you and recognizes that you've done something to help them. I get letters, even now, where people say, that was a lonely time in my life, and I used to watch your pictures all the time, and that got me through the tough times. I go, wow, really? Yeah. So, those are amazing. Those are honoring moments. But Winsor McCay probably had more influence on the starting of the animation business than anyone. But think about this, Winsor McCay. He didn't have cells, and he drew every background. Drew every drawing. I mean, that's much more than we as animators do today. I mean, we just draw the character and they put it over a painted background and the character's on itself, so you can see the background. But no. Winsor McCay, I think, is not appreciated as he should be. But it's interesting. I mean, it was a dinosaur movie. And eventually, Winsor, we did a dinosaur movie.
Yeah. But none of your dinosaurs ate rocks.
No.
Nick, thank you. Great question. What's next? Here's one from Wapidiosaurus. Maybe I said that right. How do you envision the reason for Spike's silence in The Land Before Time?
Well, when you have 5 characters in a movie, they have to actually be very different from each other. And we had the bird that couldn't fly, the little pterodactyl. He couldn't fly. You had the loudmouth, who was the little not the triceratops. Yeah, I think it was.
Yes, Sarah, the triceratops.
Yeah, anyway, she argued all the time. Everything was an argument. Then you had the innocent little guy, Littlefoot, who was just trying to get to the Green Valley. You needed somebody who was wisdom. That usually means be still. So it's like the old saying, it's better to sit and be thought a fool than to stand and remove all doubt. So I think with that Spike, he had more power. And I have to say also that it's not exactly original, because I always loved Dopey. Because, Dopey didn't talk, but everything that he did said more than the words he could have uttered.
Yeah.
So I think that was it. So there was a bit of stealing there.
Wouldn't call it stealing at all. It's just it's again, animation is visual, and if you can say it in motion and art, then you don't have to say it.
And it was like an echo, borrowing from that, which is an honoring that character, Dopey. They made Snow White at great expense and at great sacrifice. Everyone was working for almost no money.
Yeah.
And they had to go back to the bank to get more money to finish the picture, and never done before a movie that would hold an audience. Yeah. In the Carthay Circle, I'll be very brief about this. In the Carthay Circle, when they premiered this, up to that point, everybody in Hollywood had called it Walt's Folly, that he's going to make cartoons, a full-length movie, and they said that's a folly. He'll never make it. He'll go broke. So, but they gathered anyway. And for the premiere, Hollywood did. They gathered, got in those seats, and the way the record reads is that after each one of those numbers, where it was a song or it was a dramatic moment, the audience was on their feet applauding.
Yeah.
So they changed their mind immediately, I think, and an industry was born. I hate to call it an industry, but a business was born.
It was an industry propelled by art.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely that. And today the young people want to do it, but they don't know how to get there. They don't know how to get there. Even if I go to school, like Laval and myself and David Monahan, we have a university and we're trying to teach people, but it's been a great revelation to me that many of these people can't get beyond just the drawing challenge.
Yeah.
Well, and we teach the thing for a whole year. For a whole year, but I think it would take probably more like 2 years or something to get it in their head. And then after they do it, what's the reward? I can go out there and somebody will say, okay, that's fine. I can see that you understand animation, but we're going to do it in 3D.
Mm-hmm.
So, that discourages. I would love to have it before I actually joined the Feathered Choir. I would love to do one more animated film 2D, just to make sure.
Yeah.
And it would be fun to do that. And if it could make money, it would change it back, and we'd see a resurrection of the 2D animation.
I would enjoy that tremendously because, again, I always feel if the story is good and the animation is excellent, there will be an audience for it. There's always an audience for it.
Secret of NIMH is an icon right now. So the studio that holds the rights, I need to revisit them and just say, here I am. Let me do it.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit more about Bluth University.
Oh, the university. University has been we've been doing it about 3 years, is it now?
It's 2017.
Yeah, okay. 2017 we started, so it's 3 years worth. It's very, very good. We've written lessons for every week. We give them lessons, then these people go home and they do the lesson, and after they've done the lesson, then they come back the next week and show what they've done. And so we do that on the computer. I get to see all the work that they've done, and then I critique what they've done.
Okay.
The hardest part is some of these young students want a pat on the head, and so I'm trying to be really, really kind of nice about the whole thing, and yet sometimes strict enough to where they do learn. They do learn, and I want them at the end of the year. We give them a diploma and everything, but I want them at the end of the year to be knowledgeable about animation process, and they're making a portfolio all year long, and that portfolio is what they'll go out there and try and get a job using that.
Yeah, I've done some clinics at our shows with voice acting because a lot of kids say I want to be a voice actor. I'm going to do cartoons, and they're shocked when I have them advertising copy. I'm handing them stuff for PSAs and stuff. If you want to be a voice actor, this is part of the job. You have to learn this. So I sympathize with your position of I can't say it's great, but if you listen to me, please, you will learn.
Yeah, and you know what? I think learning happens. I know for me it happened this way. I would stand behind someone who's sitting at a desk with my drawing on their desk and a clean piece of paper over the top and said, here's where you didn't do it right. And they would draw over the top of it. And I always called that the monkey see, monkey do.
Yeah.
So if I can figure out where I did it wrong by standing behind someone, that's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Then you've learned the lesson. You won't make the same mistake twice, I don't think. Because you get put on. I animated a scene in Robin Hood where he is sneaking along a ledge and going into Prince John's room. Mm-hmm. I animated that, and I thought it was pretty good. But what happens, I took it upstairs to the director's room, and all the animators were there, and he showed my scene on the moviola in front of all of those guys. And then he says, let me look at this again. He looked again, and then he turned and looked right at me, and he says, I'm very disappointed. Mm-hmm. And he says, I expected much more out of you.
Wow.
And then he did a critique, and he says, could you make me believe that fox really is alive and that he has weight and everything? He says, I don't feel it. You've just made a bunch of drawings. Boy, I never forgot that. And I said, I'll see you tomorrow. And I went home and fixed it. There
you go. And that's what it is. Yeah. Get back up.
Yeah, get back. Yeah, Bambi, get up.
Yeah, absolutely. So if anybody's interested, Bluth University, we can find that online and the information associated with it. And let's go ahead and roll another one. And from Mato, what was your favorite character from your movies?
Okay, Mateo, let's see what we got. I think I kind of already answered this, which is the movie I love the most is Secret of Nim, mainly because it was innocent and it was sincere and it was from the heart. And so that to me says that's the movie I love the most because it's honest. Movies after that, I mean, American Tail is a really, really great little movie, and it's about a little guy trying to find his way back home. Yeah, and then if you look at every movie after that, the dinosaur movie, it's about a bunch of guys trying to find their way back home. Then you look at the next movie, they're all about home and family, finding your way back. And so I think it's a theme in almost every movie we made. Thumbelina, who is my home? Who's my size? You know, and all that kind of thing. She wants to find something that's solid and real. But Mateo, all I can tell you is the one that's honest, that comes from the heart, and there's pieces of that in all the movies that we've made. There's pieces of it. But I do believe that unless that is there, you won't find a favorite character or a favorite anything.
There you go. Mateo, thank you. Great question. What do we have next? And it's from Alex. What was your inspiration for Five-O Mousekewitz?
Steven Spielberg. Steven Spielberg. Five-O Mousekewitz used to be called, in the original concept, used to be called Mousy Mousekewitz. That was the name. And so, and it was really a little Russian tale and about a little mouse that came to America and everything. But one day, Steven Spielberg came into the convention where we get in the conference room. He came into the conference room and he said, okay, he says, we're going to call this little guy Fievel, F-I-E-V-E-L. And all of us scratched our heads and we said, why? And he says, because that's my grandfather. And he says, and my grandfather is this story coming to America. Now, there's a lot of fiction in American Tail, of course there is, you know, just for entertainment value. But basically, he had left Russia, come to America to follow the dream. And so I think the inspiration really basically is Stephen's grandfather.
Fair. Absolutely fair.
So Alex, take that.
There you go, Alex. Thank you. Great question. What do we have next? From Andrew. Oh, well, what was it like working with Mr. Spielberg?
Oh, well, it's like working with an 800-pound canary. Stephen was really, really good. He introduced me to lots of things, not excluding vocabulary words. Like the first time I saw him on set and he was filming, I think a war picture or something. And I saw him on set and he says, okay, we need a little more minutia. And I, of course, being totally illiterate, said, minutia? What is minutia? And he says, detail, little detail, minutia. And I said, okay. So he, like that, he was always coming up with words, you know, lifted me up to a better level. Now, Stephen is a great storyteller. So what he will do is he will look at storyboards that I thought everything was working, the continuity was working, the emotions were working, the staging was even working, in fact, brilliant. And he would come in and say, no, this would be better if you did this and this and this. Put your camera up above and look down on the characters so they look small. And so I began to think, camera angle, that's important? Yes, storyboard man, it is important. And then focus. He used to talk about that a lot. Focus. When the big picture is up on screen and it's moving and you're watching a movie, there's some little point in that scene up on that screen that the director, writer, everybody wants you to see. And if you are in animation and you paint it wrong and you light it wrong and you do everything wrong, you could miss that focal point. And yeah. Stephen was very, very good at that. Even in just a still drawing, you need a focal point. This is what you should do.
Fair. Absolutely fair. Andrew, thank you. That was a good one. What do we have next? And here's one from Laura. Oh, well, she asked the movie I wanted to avoid. Do you have a personal favorite of the movies you've created?
Wow. I would think the one I like the most is probably Brisby. I like her the most, mainly because she's courageous. She has no education. She has nothing to fall back on. And for the entire movie, Mrs. Brisby goes around begging people for help. She goes to the reps, she goes to Mr. Agent, she goes to everybody, and nobody can solve her problem. But what I like about her is eventually she has to look in the mirror and she has to solve her own problems. She's the one who saves her son. Nobody else does. And that was very similar to my real life grandmother, who had 13 children, and her husband died when they were all still at home. And she had to, so she cooked. That's all she knew how to do. So she had to take on boarders and cook for more people to raise her own family.
Yeah.
And so I think, wow, who does that? Who does that? And so Mrs. Brisby to me was kind of like a reflection of her.
Yeah, absolutely fair. Great. Laura, thank you for asking the question I was too timid to. You are my hero. What do we have next? Here's over Tyler. Oh, how did you meet Dom DeLuise?
Wow, Dom DeLuise. Well, Dom DeLuise is an interesting character because he's the guy who pulls faces and he makes one-liners and stuff, and he can take your script and throw it out the window and come up with his own while you're recording. He's very good at that. When he was doing Jeremy the Crow, Dom DeLuise says, I have a few things we're doing nowadays around the house because we're always tripping on each other. He says, we say, excuse me, pardon me. And he pulled it into the script. And then another thing too, he says, I'm looking for Miss Wright. He says, and that's the story of my life. So he was looking for Carol and looking for somebody, and so we pulled that into the script. While we were recording him, his mother, who was Italian, was sitting over in the corner, totally dressed in black, right? She didn't speak English. And so Dom DeLuise would fluff a line, and he's always good because he always looked really, really nice and even and everything when he's on camera or when he's on mic. But if he fluffs a line, out come swear words. And so it's so not like him. And some of them are really, really very strong. I said, Dom, your mom is sitting right over there. She says, oh, she's dumb as a bag of rocks. She can't hear a thing. She says, doesn't know what I'm saying. And I said, okay. But anyway, those are little insights that you see behind the scenes. And the mother didn't flinch at all. In fact, I'm sure she already knew. I mean, that's her son. She already knew.
Fair. Tyler, fun one. Thank you so much. And what's next? This comes from Alex. How did you get so creative with the soundtrack with musicians?
So creative with the soundtrack of musicians. Well, it's all structured. It's all written on a piece of paper before it's done ever in reality. So we knew that American Tail was going to be a musical because musicals were really in at that time that were making the movie. So I think what happened is we said, there's a point here in the script where we need to sing. There's a point here in the script about never say never. We need to sing that. And Christopher Plummer is the right guy to do it. So he was amazing. Christopher Plummer, I think, is one of my favorite actors of all time. And he's not with us anymore, but he is, the way he delivers a line is just amazing to me. He knows just where to pause the line to cause you to process it and then say the rest of the line.
Yeah.
Really, really good. Well, and it surprised me that he had such a good singing voice. But he says, why not? And then he would sing. But I think the music plays a great part in it. And when we did Never Say Never, and he and Philip Glasser were on set together singing this song together, I said, wow, that's what it's all about. But it all started with a thought. Yeah. And even when we talk about Somewhere Out There, James Horner had written a song which was very much like a rondo, if you know what that is. It's a very fast little moving thing. Yeah. They had a couple of Sesame Seeds guys come in and write the song, and one of them asked me, he said, what's it about? And he says, well, I told him, I said, the song is about this little guy who's lost from his family, and he knows that he's looking at the moon, and somewhere out there, they're looking at the same moon. He said, oh, somewhere out there. So everybody took a jab at that song, and nobody really did it well until Cynthia Weil and Barry Mann came along, and James Horner played his version on the piano somewhere out there. Well, Barry Mann is a guy that has a very deep voice, and it's down there like that. And he says, well, let me try something. I think you've got too many notes. And he put it over to the piano, and he went somewhere out there. He says, there's your melody. Don't make it complicated.
Right. There you go. Keep it simple. Alex, thank you. I think we have time for one more. So let's see if we can roll out a really fun one. And this is going to come from Amber. What would your advice be to new artists who have a dream like yours?
Whoa. All right. First of all, I have to tell you that when I started out with this dream of becoming an artist, I had no idea that it meant much more than drawing. And when I went to college, I said, what shall I do? Go into the art department? And I said, no, I know how to draw. Why would I go there? But where I didn't have anything is I graduated from high school having not read one book cover to cover. So I said, I'm illiterate. So I went to the English department and enrolled there. And of course, it was very difficult because I was starting from ground zero, but it gave me a philosophical approach to everything, because that's what those books were. That's what that writing was, both English and American authors. And as I began to study that, it began to hurt, began to worry me a lot, because I was quite satisfied with my own philosophy, but it didn't do that. It began to pull the curtains aside and let the light in. Yeah. So I would say, to answer your question, it's a lot of things. I think it's learning how to draw well if you want to be an artist or an animator. But at the same time, you have to have something to say. And that's not just drawing. Anybody can pick up a pencil or a paintbrush and do something on canvas or a piece of paper. I said, that is not what it's about. Anybody does that. You can draw on your mother's walls if you want. But I would say it's got to be, what do you have to say that's worthwhile to the rest of us? And so that means you need to do something about this, the brain and the heart. You have to be able to say, what am I trying to tell everybody? What is my song that's so important that everybody needs to hear it?
Yeah, very good. Very good. Amber, thank you. That was a wonderful question. And GalaxyCon viewers, I'm Patty Hawkins. This has been Don Bluth, and that was our time. Don, this has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you again for joining us at the GalaxyCon virtual stage. Any final words for our audience before we go?
Yeah, you know what? You only get a chance to live on this earth one time. You want to take advantage of that, and don't be gloomy about everything, but find something to be happy about. There's lots of things. In all the musicals, there's always the philosophy that comes singing through, like, happy talk, keep talking happy talk about things you like to do. So find that, and don't listen to all of the doomsayers that are all around us right now telling you that the sky is falling, because it's not. It's not. So I would think a dream is a good thing, because if you find a dream and you study it, I find myself, when I sit and I watch the world in any way at all, I'm going to go down. I'm going to be influenced by that. So I have to pick myself back up. So what I do is I go create something. I write something, or I draw something, anything, and that relieves it. So you're born to create. So whatever your dream is, start creating, and don't listen to the discouraging people who are all around you. They have to change. Anyway, that's about it. And thank you guys for being a wonderful audience and asking all those great questions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Don, once again, thank you for joining us at the GalaxyCon virtual stage. Thank you to our audience for joining us. And as Don said, thank you for all your wonderful questions. Bye-bye, everyone. Take care. And as always, please keep washing those hands.